I feel like there's a lot of moments where it feels very documentary.
Yeah.
And actually, I that's probably the one thing that I wish there was more of in this film. There's a particular sequence where they're in Iraq, and it's just after Rosamund Pike's met Jamie Dornan for the first time, and they're in the car, and they get stopped by like a military outpost, and they all get taken out of the car and they have to put their hands against the car, but the camera stays inside the car, so you can't really see what's going on very well. You can only see their faces through the window. And that feels very documentary to me and made that moment feel real. And I kind of wish there was a little bit more of that throughout the film.
I felt like that was throughout the film. Like, that was what I loved about this film. I love that moment too. That's when they're on their way to Fallujah, right?
Yeah.
I just think I don't think that anyone else could have made this film like it was, apart from Matt. I think it was very documentary in the style that he approached it with. He interviewed like everyone in Marie's life before he made the film, and they filmed in Jordan, but he didn't want actors, so like those security officers in that scene, they were refugees. Like pretty much everyone that he spoke to were like refugees. So they filmed in Jordan, and they got refugees from the specific countries that they were supposed to be filming from. And they paid really close attention to like dialect and accent. So like the Tamils in Sri Lanka were, real Tamils. Like, he went to like such huge lengths to make it authentic. And this scene in like the widow's bunker, is that what it was called? The widow's bunker, where she's like walking around and the women are giving her stories, and she's like, I want to tell your stories. Those were real like refugees from Homs telling their stories. And so the woman who like starts crying, describing her little girl that was like stuck under the rubble, and she says, I don't want my words to just be ink on paper. Like, I want people to hear this. That was all like real. And I think that that's incredible. I think that he gave an incredible gift to those people of like letting them be heard. And can you imagine what like an incredible experience that would have been? Like, crazy for the crew, for Rosamund to like be there, as if that, that's what Marie went through.
Yeah.
And I just think it's so powerful. I respect this film so much, and like it means so much more to me now after like I learned that.
There's the one scene in particular that like really stuck with me, and I think it would be hard not for it to stick with you, is the scene in which the little boy gets brought into the like sort of makeshift hospital and dies.
Yeah, like,
and the parents are crying, and there's an amazing shot again which feels very documentary. I mean, that whole sequence feels quite documentary again. And I guess in a way that's maybe, from what you've just told me, that's maybe, I mean, I'm sure it was a stylistic choice, but maybe slightly less of a stylistic choice, and maybe more of a simple result of the way they approach those scenes with people who are really there, because it almost feels like Matthew Heineman has let them just do whatever they need to do.
Yeah, he did. So he left a lot of room for improvisation.
And then they are just capturing it. So in a sense, they are filming it like you would a documentary, because you're just trying to capture what's going on. And there's an amazing shot where you have the two grieving parents in the foreground, and you see Rosamund Pike in the gap between them. And
because she's not the main character of that scene.
No. And it's an incredible. I was going to say it's an incredible performance, and it is an incredible performance from those two. But I imagine it's less of a performance now after what you've told me.
Because it was so, and you could see it too, like on Jamie Dornan's face when like Paul puts down the camera, he like can't. He's like, he's just like froze. He's like, can't take any more photos. And he's just like, oh my God, oh my God. Like it was, rough. So that scene for sure. The scene in Fallujah when they dig up the mass grave.
Yeah.
Those women were, real Afghanistan women who had lost people hadn't seen them for 13 years, and they did turn up in, mass graves. And so there's something like really amazing about it. And that scene when it gets to sundown and they start doing the kind of, I don't know what you would call it, like ritualistic,
chanting,
generic chanting and prayer. That was all them. I think these women were really just like, it was all coming back to them, and they just kind of started doing that of their own fruition. Apparently for them, I think it was probably a very cathartic thing to be with each other and to be kind of saying goodbye in that way again. And that was, they kind of just started doing that on their own. And I think Matt got them to, he was like, turn the cameras back on kind of thing. Like, and I think he tried to, in a way, intervene as little as possible with that
I
kind
think
of
if
stuff,
you're going to do that kind of thing, though, that is the only way to do it from, not only from a directing standpoint in terms of like capturing the best stuff for film, but also almost from like a moral standpoint. Like you can't really, because this, like, for these people, it's real, right? And so you can't then try and dictate that, or that's that, because it's a really difficult, and it must have been a really carefully discussed thing beforehand, because it adds an element of realism to the film that you otherwise like just cannot replicate. But also in the same, by the same token, it presents quite like an ethical challenge in how you approach these things without re-traumatizing people, or feeling like they're being used and their stories being used just for Hollywood entertainment. And there's a real sort of line that it could easily be crossed without you knowing it. So the fact they managed to pull it off, and it does feel completely respectful of those stories. And I think that's the thing you get most out of the film. For me anyway, like it was less of a film about, it almost wasn't a film about Marie Colvin to me, because I was left last night thinking about this film and thinking it never feels like the film has really like has a narrative through line, if you see what I mean, in terms of like a traditional narrative structure. They're just like there really doesn't feel like there is one. And I think that's because he cares more about telling these stories that are going on throughout the world. And in a sense, it kind of feels how, I don't know Marie Colvin, but from watching the film, I can't imagine her wanting a film to be all about her.
That's what I was going to say. I agree with you to an extent, because I think it is a movie about Marie, but I think it's what's the best way to honor that incredible woman, and to tell her story. It's to tell the stories that she so desperately wanted told and that she died to tell,